at the time, one known as Pillars. So, for those who don't know, Pillars is very old school, actually playing in the PGL, Professional Gaming League days back in, I think, 1999, and other tournaments like I2E2 and others that have long since faded from memory. So I'll go over a bit of his background in the game itself. And just know that essentially he was, a special note, one of the first 4 North Americans sponsored to live in Korea and play professionally. So himself, Maynard, Thor, and Gur were the 4 that a Korean team ended up inviting over and sponsoring for several months to play in that upcoming Korean scene. That scene that seemed like it was a step away from the North American scene at this point in time, as we only really encountered it at the WCG Grand Finals. So we're going to go ahead and bring up this game 3, and this is a map called Showdown. So this was all these games that CompUSA were doing. The map pool came from Blizzard's ladder map pool at that period in time. I don't believe it was the entire map pool, but it was a pretty heavy subset of it. And Showdown is a 2-player map where basically you have 2 players on either side, and it's a showdown. You try to kill each other. So let's go ahead and bring that up. So I'll introduce the players. Here at the top is actually Pillars playing under the Smurf name Tel-Aviv. A lot of us smurfing in order to hide who we were because we don't want people to know our styles or what our preferences would be. And myself playing under the Smurf name UJ Knight is the Terran player, the green one at the bottom. So in this case, I was definitely a random, as again, I'm mostly a Protoss player, but I would occasionally go random depending upon the opponent. And Pillars only ever played Protoss. So while this opening gets going, I'll go ahead and bring up some of Pillars information. So Pillars would actually take first place in the first ever WCG event for the United States. So WCGC, being held, called the World Cyber Games Challenge at the time, was created by the WCG company in Korea. And they held a tournament in Times Square, New York, where Pillars would actually compete and end up winning that tournament, defeating other players like myself and other top American players that were in attendance. It's worth noting that even though he took first place, he never actually went to the Grand Finals in Korea, as he ended up saying from a forum post that I found that he had school coming up and he hated long plane rides. So he gave up the chance to go to Korea because of that. And he just didn't want to have to practice up to get ready for the Grand Finals in Korea. So he decided to just simply take his winnings from the USA WCG event and be fine with that. So he's opening up with a standard barracks here. And a supply depot, no gas yet. Sorry, I'm opening up with that. So playing the Terran player here, I'm opening up with the barracks and supply depot. Not used to myself playing Terran. And for Pillars, he's just simply going for an early assimilator and gateway. So for those who don't know what Pillars looks like, here's him at the WCGC state group stage. The event that he won again, the first WCG event ever held, and that is at the United States qualifier, basically for the WCG Grand Finals of that year. Here's another photo of him hanging out at that same event with Gesture and a bunch of others that are labeled. And he's at the one in the very center. And here's a group shot that has a bunch of named players. I'll leave up while I go back to the action here. So we have Pillars getting up a Protoss cybernetic core. And for myself, I have my gas now up, and I'm going for a standard factory. So nothing else new, just both getting our tech trees going. Let's see what Pillars goes for here. A robotics facility, again, very standard in terms of what he's going to be doing in this game. I don't think I've ever remembered seeing Pillars do a cheese, so it's very rare that you'd see him do something unstandard in his builds. So one more screenshot for you. This is Pillars at the Korean tournament that he was competing in. one of the ones that he was in Korea for during the time he was with Main or Thurangur. And you can see here he's saving a Protoss probe at the side to be able to scout my base later, something that I am not going to be able to find or easily be able to tell is there. And it had the average APM up before, which I believe was 124. This game itself, he's actually playing with 152. I'm playing with 110 for this game, and for my average APM and other information, I'll bring that up while I get back to the game and then go over that in just a second here. So we have a little bit here as this Dragoon tries to chase out this Terran SCV, so he's trying to prevent me from getting more scouting information while getting a Protoss Observatory. Meanwhile, his probe's still hanging out over here, waiting to gain information from my base as I pump out a few Marines and end up going for tanks, essentially. So likely going for a tank-Marine combo. So for myself, I competed in a lot of old tournaments. I placed in a few things, North America, never a champion. I was always just kind of a stepping stone. So you knew you were starting to become good after you started to beat me consistently. So more of a mid-tier player at the time. Average APM 119, probably at the lower end of the competitive side of the North American scene, and playing with pretty low 110 APM here, but again, I was normally a Protoss player, so playing random Terran, my APM would have dropped a little bit. And if you want to see what I look like, this is myself at the Million Man LAN later on in 2002, so later on the same year. That would have been what I looked like. So it looks like this I'm pushing out here with a tanks and Marines, adding in a few vultures on the behind because they move much faster than their other units. They can catch up to the units that are moving forward. So it's going to be try to be a very powerful push with Pillars here bringing his forces back. He does have a Protoss shuttle up. And it looks like he is going to be going for Reavers and getting his range upgrade just now. So this is going to be a very strong push against him that he doesn't look that ready for just yet. If you want to see what this entire map looks like, I'll bring that up since I think that we can do that as well. There are actually 2 island expansions on this map on the sides. That is kind of unusual and not often used, but would sometimes play a part, especially against Terran players who went to the late game. So here's the push. I'm trying to do as much damage as I can. I see this shuttle here that's very juicy, so I'm going to try to take that out as quickly as possible, but can't do so. And the Reaver's out now, so now this is going to get a little more dicey. Pillars has pulled his probes to try to help against the push itself. I seem to have some units here that don't seem to want to be helping with this fight here, kind of being lazy bums. Do your work, do your job. Ooh, that was a good shot. So it looks like Pillars is going to push back this timing push I attempted to do against him. I was trying to hit him right before he got his Reaver, but he ended up getting it just as my attack force had arrived at the north. And these SCVs were likely going to be there to build bunkers or missile turrets, but are no longer needed because the push has been unsuccessful. Back in the base, essentially I'm floating 750 minerals. Not doing that great there with my macro. Pillar is doing a very good job with his. I'm going to turn back off the overall viewpoint, this way you can see a little bit more where the action is going down. The purple kind of doesn't show up very well against this map. It's unfortunate. And it looks like I'm going to try to take an expansion with all that minerals I have been floating. To try to get ahead economically at this point in time, while building up some missile turrets to try to make his jobs harder to do. You'll notice the position of the missile turret. It's because of the fact that I figure if he's likely to drop me, he's likely to come directly down from his base and try to come down this side over here. So just trying to protect it there from the most likely drop position that I would anticipate. And doing a Maynard transfer of my SCVs to the expansion. And we see here he has his shuttle. That he is going to be coming down from that angle that I anticipated, so we'll see how that goes. But it looks like my expansion is going to be in his way, so it's unlikely he'll actually make it to my base before dropping it. Oh, he looks like he's decided that's okay for now. And he's just going to keep on moseying on down. So I do have the tower there and the siege tank siege tier blocking out from one of my newly produced tanks accidentally. And there is his drop down there. A little bit over to the side, a little bit outside of where this tower was positioned. And it looks like I don't have any easy way to stop this just yet. Trying not to get these tanks into the right position as my positioning has been quite poor. This siege tank is stuck, unfortunate for me. And he's probably just going to take these out, it looks like. And the shuttle lives too. Not a single death for it. Oh, there it goes. That SCV was a hero. Deserves extra compensation. So this Reaver is going to town. I do have an expansion up that is mining. Pillars doesn't have any expansion himself, so he is only still in his main base, so it's not quite as dire in terms of the mineral counts as it might initially seem, but it's still a pretty dire situation. I have 40 food to Pillar 69, so also behind in the army count, especially since I lost those tanks and all the SCVs that existed at this base. So a tank is coming down now to try to chase this around. There's an SCV here. I think this is mostly just designed to try to eat up an attack if he wasn't macroing it. So if he was just macroing and not paying attention, he would attack the SCV rather than attacking the tank that I was trying to quickly try to chase that away with. Check top left, which is, yep, his expansion is going up. Just now getting done and built up. It looks like he also may be planning to take the island now, as it'll be hard for me to reach that position. And he's going for a +1 and getting up his Citadel of Adun, and has essentially 2 gateways pumping out units at this point in time. And there's that probe dropping. I have a defensive position set up since the only way that you can go without shuttles is through the center portion of the map. This basically means his entire army has to funnel through here or use some other way of transporting itself to get beyond the defenses that I am setting up in this line here. And it looks like he's bringing down some of his forces to protect his expansion. I did lay a single siege mine from a vulture that was trying to check out what was going on. And I've been mined up this other base here to try to make it more difficult to expand if he tries to take another one, just the mineral only further down. Or I guess it does have a gas. So he's just going to take the island instead. It's much easier. I haven't shown any dropships yet. And it's very close to his base to try to reinforce that with the shuttles he already has built up to this point. So mostly both of us are macroing at this point, just building up armies. About 54 right now to 88 food supply. I am on 3 factories compared to 1, 2, 3 gateways. Armor being researched by pillars. And this force here looks like it's going to try to see what my defensive line may be like, or just at least try to poke forward to try to see what's out there. Well, or maybe just be ready in case I decide to attack, which is what I'm doing now. These siege tanks moving up the right side. It looks like he's going to try to pincer me. So forces from the back to take out these siege tanks. Meanwhile, forces from the front to get maximum coverage of it and try to prevent me from more easily sieging up because I can't attack both sides at the same time. So I have laid some mines trying to stop this force from pulling forward and slow it down while I try to fight off the force behind me. But it looks like he's going to clean that up quite easily. This base is up, not mining yet. He's just focused on the attack. He smells blood in the water. Doesn't look like I'm going to have a lot of forces here to hold this off with. I have, I think, 3 siege tanks and a single vulture and a few spider mines. But his forces are having a hard time pathing through this little crevice here, which isn't that little, but for a large army, it can be quite annoying. And with the siege tanks taken up, he essentially has 5 unchallenged dragoons, which, ooh, was not a hero spider mine. So this, he started the assimilator, pumping up a bunch of probes. This base is quite nicely saturated. It looks like he's filling out quite a great deal ahead. floating minerals, 31 food to 85. Just trying to hold off as best I can. Nope, tank won't even survive. Dragoon does with 2 though, so quite a good job by him. And it doesn't look like there's much else that's going to happen here. Pretty well played by Pillars. You will see there's no GG. They replaced, did not record any chat that was spoken between the opponents. We were all just, we weren't just all BM to each other, so it's just impossible to tell what that text might have been. So yeah, so that was again Pillars playing under Tel-Aviv against myself. Yeah, quite a quiet player, as he had been the first place in the first WGG USA qualifier in the United States, or at Times Square, qualifying for the grand finals, but ending up skipping it, and had been one of the first foreign pros in existence. And 124 average APM, but the games that I have of him, a little bit on the lower end, he was starting to fall out at this point in time in terms of his competitiveness, not going on to be a professional player for much longer.